Hi, this is chapter 4, part 2, and I'm going to make the second part, hopefully, a bit briefer and leave you to read more of it in the book because there's quite a lot of detail which will just take me far too long to explain. So what you're looking at basically here is a map of the global map of World War II. So we have basically the Axis powers of Germany and Italy and France, these three fascist countries, against Britain and France. When France is defeated, surrenders in 1940, Britain fights on alone and is joined in 1941. Sorry, I completely forgot the date. Then 1941 by the US and also by the Soviets. Okay, if we look at the European arena, what we're looking at here is, in the first place, a big outthrust by Germany in the early years of the war, which is very hard to keep in check until actually after France is defeated and the US and Soviets join the war, and then the situation is reversed and there's this inexorable pressure put on Germany. And in the Pacific arena, we can see the areas in green here are the areas that the Japanese took and controlled in the course of World War II, and the pink lines are the battles by the Allied forces, which are struggling to take back these areas. Okay, so we were talking a little bit before about the US coming into the war, and they have a very particular reason to come in 41 after the Japanese declare war on America and bomb Pearl Harbor. But let's have a little look at the deeper causes of World War II. Well, basically, what's going on is an ongoing struggle to define the shape of a new industrial world system. That's at the base of this. What should the new world look like, and who gets to control it? In the immediate causes, and as you can see most obviously here, aggression by the fascist powers of Germany, Italy and Japan, and aggressive actions as part of their policy, not as a defensive strategy or something that's part of a territorial mechanism in particular, but just aggression as policy. And part of this is this us versus them world view, which glorified national expansionism, and this underpinned racial ideology in Germany and Japan. So it was not just about conquest, but also about genocide. The European response at first was a little hesitant. Germany, as you will be aware, starts to take lands in Czechoslovakia, the Sudetenland, and at first they say, oh, the people there are ethnically German and we should know what's going on, they should be part of Germany. A similar argument used by the Russians in the Ukraine recently, which Prince Charles pointed out to much of the chagrin of Putin. Anyway, that's way too controversial for me to actually mention, so forget that I said that. But the European response was hesitant. It was completely indifferent to China's actions in China, and in Europe it followed a policy of appeasement. And in some ways this appeasement has been blamed for the war almost as much as German aggression. But we have to sort of think about this in terms of the times and think about what was going on. The ideas of national self-determination had been behind the peace settlements of World War One. So the idea that the Germans in Czechoslovakia should be part of Germany wasn't too out there. And this is all sort of behind the background of the threat of growing communism as well. And also the idea of trying to recover from World War One and trying to avoid repeating it. But the mistake that was made by Britain was really how to try to deal rationally with what was essentially irrational, and that's fascism. So we talked a little bit about the course of the war already. The Germans sort of marching around, taking Czechoslovakia, taking Austria, taking Poland, and right from the beginning we see their racial ideology played out. And here we see Polish Jews being rounded up in 1939. Remember, this continues throughout the war. We see in Elie Wiesel's account that he's taken to the camps in 1944. So this is just relentless throughout the war. In 1942, we really see a sort of turnaround in the war. Not really suggested by the slide particularly, but we see three battles in 42, the Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Midway in the Pacific Theatre, and El Alamein in North Africa, where my maternal grandfather fought. And the course starts to churn back, and you start to see gradually a little bit more of Germany, the fascism being turned back. Okay, so the actual details of the war are quite complicated, and they're even massively simplified for you in Murillo's book. But I'm going to leave you to kind of read them yourselves, because I would just be really repeating the detail that he gives. But I also want you to think about issues of military developments in landcraft, and we see a Panzer division here, and also in aircraft. This is the USS Midway. And these naval carriers that come to dominate warfare in Japan and actually make warfare in the Pacific arena possible. And ultimately, of course, the atomic bomb, which is used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, and relating to the last two documents that you'll read today, relating to Einstein. But we also want to think a little bit about what is going on in terms of ideology and race and war in this period. And I'm sure you've all learnt the details of the Holocaust before, but when we were talking about World War One, Murillo, I think quite rightly, called World War One a stupid war. It was about territory, it was about power games. World War Two was not a stupid war, because at the heart of it, this is what it was about. It was about trying to stop fascists with aggressive territory-grabbing ideologies, which also involved racial genocide. So for Britain and for the US, and even for the Soviets, this was a war against fascism, against racist ideology, and against willful aggression. We can hardly imagine what the world would have been like if events had turned out differently 60 years ago and the fascists had won. So as I said before, the full extent of the Nazi war against the Jews was not realized until after the war. It was certainly realized that there were labor camps, but not necessarily the extent of the eradication policy and the way that this was carried out on an industrial scale. So, as you know, more than 6 million Jews were massacred. Initially, some were killed by the armies directly as they advanced into enemy territories. Then Jews were rounded up and taken to labor camps and worked for the benefit of German capitalist industry for firms such as Volkswagen. There's nothing at all innocent about the Volkswagen Beetle. Ultimately, they were sent to death camps. And although not as systematic as or industrial as the German eradication of the Jews, the Japanese worldview was also deeply racialized, which was shown in the December 1937 Nanking massacre, which was also famous for mass war rapes and by Japanese soldiers on Chinese women. And there's recently been a big conference in London that you might be aware of, because Angelina Jolie was involved, as well as the British Foreign Secretary, to really start to still tackle the still ongoing problem of war rape. So another consequence of war was that it stirred things up on the home front, and in the US and in Britain, women became involved in working as never before, as this US Employment Service poster shows. And although there's a little bit of a turn back of this after the war, when the soldiers return, it really does pivot women's lives a little bit, encouraging them to take up work. The fascists, of course, had opposite ideas of the woman's place, and German women were encouraged to stay home and have lovely German babies and not be involved in anything outside the home. So another condition, another sort of consequence of the war was that it repudiated, which means it sort of pointed out how false and insecure positions were, which were reactionary, and positions that were repressive, that were ultra-nationalist or anti-modernizing. And unfortunately, we can still see echoes of these positions in the US and the UK and around the world. But although some people, express these reactionary, repressive positions with strong voices, they are by and large not strongly supported, even though people like the Tea Party, for example, take a larger chunk of the media than their actual support would warrant them. So it also importantly sets the stage for competition between opposing economic systems of capitalism and communism, which also, helps to shape the recovery of Germany and Japan. Germany and Japan were not punished as Germany had been after World War One. In fact, they were helped to recover and industrialized and sort of rejoin the world industrial system. And this really has sort of done a lot to help peace in the world since World War Two. And I'm going to leave you on your own to think about the last section here about war, memory, and identity. But suffice to say that both the communist and the capitalist sides were intimately involved in perpetuating a memory of the war that led to moral certitude, to really believe that their side was morally correct. And it was the right way, not just for the US or for the USSR, but also for the whole world. And this is a lot of what the Cold War was about, is about this idea that coming out of World War II, they were right, and that their side was the best way for the rest of the world. Okay, thank you.